Well, hello there. Good evening, WNBA and LA Sparks fans. Coming away a bit late tonight here on the LA Sparks 365 Network. We kind of shuffled up our lineup card this evening. We had WNBA radio beforehand the night before we came here with the two-man show of record that is called The Guys with Petition. Good evening, everybody, alongside Chris Woodmansey via Apple's FaceTime on my computer desk from the 8 Heart Studios up in Anaheim, California. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in a scorching hot America's finest city of San Diego, California. Chris, good evening, man, and how's it going tonight?
Just hanging here, just can't keep my composure down right now.
Now, folks, I'm sure you saw earlier today our off-season programming kicks off next Sunday night. We will have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to kick off the brand new programming involving Open Court, FIBA 365, Ageless Sparks, and a few other things included, folks. We'll have more about that, though, at a later time and date. But, Chris, tonight, though, man, we came with the Petition show because of a running conversation I had today with SwitchAppeal.com writer James Bowman, who, Chris, today released an article that I read today, or read last show at least, on WNBA Radio, Chris, about possible WNBA expansion. Now, Chris, this has been one of your talking points during the offseason and on our last show here about the growth of the league, Chris, to try to start expanding the league a little bit, Chris, in a very small fashion, because it seemed like, Chris, when the league did expand, it was too much, way too early, and everybody basically packed up and left after that. But, Chris, knowing, though, man, that we've had two good seasons, two record-setting, tremendous seasons with the WNBA as far as growth in many ways, Chris, Laurel Richie said, Chris, it's something, Chris, they talk about every offseason, that it's, when's the best time, Chris. She does not give a specific time as to when they will expand, Chris. But though, Chris, there is the factor, though, that she said that there have been dozens upon dozens, Chris, of groups already coming forward saying, we want a franchise in your league. Chris, what does this say, or what does this speak in your mind about what we could see in the future, Chris, of either new teams and new cities, Chris, or above all, what I'm going to talk about a lot, Chris, is the resurrection of many, many old franchises that have been in the WNBA graveyard for a long, long time. What do you think, dude?
I think pretty much awesome. Probably the old team from the past might be coming back, or pretty good. That we're going to have expansion in the WNBA, more teams, and probably going to get more viewers watching the WNBA.
Chris, I think everybody across the league, regardless if they're an LA fan or not, or just everyone in general, Chris, I'm kind of sure, Chris, that everyone's a bit put out that it's the same 11 teams everyone plays every season, including the other 5 in their conference and the other 4 or 5 or 6 across the Eastern Conference, Chris, because, I mean, after a while, man, it kind of gets old always playing, Phoenix 5 times a year, the Lynx 4 times a year, the Stars 3 times a year, Chris. I mean, it kind of does get old, though, that he played the same teams over and over and over and over again. But I think, though, man, that what we've seen, though, I mean, I know that we've had a lot of franchises that I'm looking at here, courtesy of my cheat sheet, folks, which I pulled up here before the show here, of every team in the WNBA from 97 till now, of Chris, of just how we've seen, some teams that never got their feet off the ground. Then, of course, Chris, there's those teams that we always remember, like Detroit, Houston, Sacramento. All these legendary teams, Chris, that we associate so with the league, Chris. I mean, for one deal, Chris, it was, I think the turning point here for the WNBA, Chris, was when the league lost the Comets, Chris. I think once that happened, as I said last show, man, that was like, the bloody dagger, from a Shakespeare play that was, just impaled in the WNBA's heart, because you lost the founding ground, the framework of the WNBA for the first 4 years of the league, Chris, where he had them dominate everybody and win the first 4 titles. Chris, looking over the list here of the teams that are no longer in operation, which includes the Charlotte Sting, Cleveland Rockers, the Detroit Shock, Houston Comets, Miami Soul, the Orlando Miracle, the Portland Fire, Sacramento Monarchs, and the Utah Stars. Now, Chris, you do have to remember, though, man, that Orlando and Utah moved to San Antonio and Connecticut, respectfully, as did Detroit going to Tulsa, while everyone else, Chris, did fold and did become a defunct franchise. Chris, I'm not sure if you caught the WNBA radio show because you had some cell phone problems because of the scorching heat we're stuck in here in California. But, Chris, I took the list of teams that are no longer around, Chris, and basically checked and X'd out if they would come back, Chris. And my top 4 teams, or my top teams, Chris, solely, Chris, remain Houston, Detroit, and Sacramento. Now, Chris, I say Houston, of course, because, Chris, you can't have a pro sports league without some sort of dynasty in there, Chris. I mean, it wouldn't be the same in baseball without having the Yankees, or the NBA not having the Lakers or Celtics, or the NFL having the Cowboys or the 49ers, Chris. And as I said, man, that when Houston did fold, that it was, you know, a bloody dagger impaled in the WNBA's heart, Chris, because you lost your marquee franchise. You know, we talk a lot about LA being the marquee franchise, Chris. Chris, they're the marquee franchise of the current day WNBA. The Comets, Chris, are the all-time marquee franchise, Chris. And I think that if they do expand, Chris, Houston has to be 1 or 2. I mean, you cannot go somewhere else before Houston, Chris, because I think, Chris, the fan base in Houston, you know, they sold out Compaq Center, the Summit, and Reliant Arena, Chris, for so many years down there that they are in need. I think they're worthy enough, Chris, of a WNBA franchise. What do you think, though, Chris, about possibly, Chris, reviving, bringing back to life, Chris, the long-time WNBA dynasty that is the Houston Comets, and why?
Since they've been won a lot of championships in the past, and it's pretty awesome to see the Houston Comets back in the league.
Then, Chris, after Houston, I say you've got to bring back the Detroit Shock, Chris. And I'm not saying to fold the Shock franchise, Chris, but I think that might be happening very soon. For some reason, I don't know why I feel that way about the Tulsa Shock, Chris. But Detroit, I think, you know, with their track record, Chris, you know, they played 11 solid years in the WNBA, won 3 championships, ended LA's chance at a three-peat in 2003. Chris, it was depressing when it wasn't like, you know, like a big blow, Chris, but it was like a pretty significant blow, Chris, when I saw the Shock leave for Tulsa, because it was a family-run business, Chris, just like the Lakers. It was a husband and wife and their kids running the Shock. The husband passed on, and the wife wanted no part of the Shock and Pistons and sold the franchises to new ownership groups, Chris. And I think that, personally, Chris, I mean, this would be a case, man, where the Shock could end up becoming the face of the Palace of Auburn Hills if they ever came back, Chris, because the Pistons have gone nowhere since the same year where they beat the Lakers for the 2003-04 title, Chris. What would you make of if the Shock, the true Shock franchise, went back to Motown and played back in Detroit?
I just don't know. Probably even more rivals and brawls between the Sparks and the Detroit Shock.
Well, Chris, I mean, I don't necessarily think it will. I mean, Chris, Chris, believe it or not, they can always ask Bill Lambier to come back. They can always ask Lynette Pearson to come back, and Rick Mahorn can have another LA-Detroit brawl, so why not do it? Then, Chris, the area I think that is worthy of it, Chris, believe it or not, man, is the Sacramento Bay Area, Chris, because the Monarchs were the Sparks' lone California rival. It was a typical NorCal, SoCal rivalry, Chris, like this with the Dodgers and Giants, and, of course, Chris, with the Galaxy and the Earthquakes. It was that sort of a rivalry between LA and Sacramento, Chris, and above all, Chris, it was at the height of the Kings and Lakers playoff battle in 2002, when you had Big Shot Bob beat the Kings to force another game in Sacramento to tie that series up, Chris. And when Sacramento left, Chris, it really, you know, only left LA as the true California team, man. But it was more demanding on travel from teams that would leave LA, Chris, to go and play in Seattle, because once the Monarchs left, Chris, that was the closest team other than Phoenix to play the Sparks. But, Chris, there's a three-way street here, though, with, yes, a three-way street, folks, with that Parker jersey behind me. A three-way street, Chris, behind my reasoning as to why Sacramento or that area would come back, Chris. Now, I say Sacramento because the Kings are in the process, Chris, of getting a brand new arena sometime very soon to get out of that lumpy old mattress arena. Yes, pun intended there, folks. The lumpy old mattress arena that is called Sleep Train Arena there in Sacramento, formerly Arco Arena, Chris. worthy of about 495 to about $500 million, Chris. And I think, though, that if the Monarchs came back, Chris, that rivalry would reignite in a heartbeat if it was L.A., Sacramento all over again, Chris, because it's a ordinary NorCal, SoCal rivalry. Chris, how cool would it be, man, for you at least to see the Monarchs come back since you never got to see them play in the early years of the WNBA?
It'd be just pretty awesome to see the Monarchs play in the WNBA. Pretty awesome.
And of course, it'd be a regular NorCal SoCal rivalry. But of course, folks, we will take your input here on Twitter at LASparks365, at Calimac3, or at LASparksFan30. Hit us up and let us know which city or former WNBA city do you feel is worthy of a WNBA expansion franchise? Let us know, and we'll get to your tweets later on in the show. Now, Chris, there's a few teams that I do not think get expansion teams, Chris, which would include Charlotte, Miami, Orlando, Portland, and Utah, Chris. I say those teams for one reason, Chris, is I just don't think there is a fan base interest in the WNBA, Chris. And I think, though, man, it's also areas, minus Miami, that have struggling NBA franchises, Chris, that are more relevant than if they had WNBA cities, Chris. And I think, though, as well, man, that I think Miami, Orlando, and Portland would be failures, along with Utah, Chris, because those teams didn't last 5 or more years. Portland and Miami, Chris, lasted 2, then they folded. Charlotte maybe because they lasted 10. Chris, I mean, out of those cities, man, do you at all think that Charlotte, Miami, Orlando, Portland, or even Utah might get a team? Because I really, Chris, don't see it happening because I just don't think that those teams, Chris, even had a chance to really sort of get their feet wet, and above all, Chris, take flight and really start playing long-term basketball. I think. What do you think, though?
Yeah.
All right, obviously you're in another place for some stupid reason. But again, folks, rumors in here from the Boston Globe and Swishfield.com, writer and 365 insider James Bowman of possible WNBA expansion in the coming few years. Now, Chris, Laurel Richie, Chris, who I think has done a fantastic job so far in her tenure as the president, Chris. I mean, she handled the Spark situation so well. For 35 straight days, Chris, she probably worked her tail and bun off to get that team to stay in Los Angeles and find that ownership group. And, Chris, I think, though, that Laurel's right that, with the WNBA being the longest-running professional women's pro league, Chris, that it is in her mind about expansion, Chris. But what I don't want Laurel to do, Chris, is I don't want her to pull a David Stern here, Chris, and that's add a bunch of teams across the country, Chris, and then have all of them fold pretty much, Chris, simultaneously, Chris, because that is what cannot happen, Chris, is you add a bunch of teams into the league, and then like we saw with the Miracle and and everyone else, Chris, like Portland and Orlando specifically, that they're there for 2 years, Chris, and then they're gone like that because of ownership. Chris, how do you think, though, knowing how well that Laurel Richie, Chris, handled the Spark situation and a few things, Chris, how will she handle the expansion process? Knowing, though, that it's been a pretty rough climb, though, for the WNBA to expand because of a few past problems. How do you think she handles the situation, though, going forward?
I think she'll handle it probably safe and stuff like that.
Chris, I think I'd probably see Laurel expanding. Chris, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to add maybe maybe add 2 teams every season. You can add Houston and Detroit 1 year, then add, Cleveland 1 year, the next year after that, or Utah the next year. I mean, you could do so many different things, Chris. Now, Chris, I'll be honest here, man, is I don't know how far this will get me here, but I would like to throw a friendly pitch into Laurel Richie about the city of San Diego, Chris, because we have not had a basketball franchise by any means, either NBA, D-League, Chris, we haven't had a basketball franchise here since we had the beloved Clippers here back in the 70s before they bolted for Los Angeles. Chris, what new cities, like Anaheim, San Diego, Vegas, perhaps, Chris, Chris, let's sort of segue, man, away from WNBA cities. Okay, Chris, let's examine Anaheim, for instance, for some stupid reason, because they're in your backyard, Chris. Now, we know, though, that Honda Center is not really a basketball arena. It's a hockey venue and has some AFL team named after a legendary rock band. Chris, do you think, though, that if somehow the WNBA came to Anaheim and said that they would want a team, I mean, I don't quite know how well it would work, Chris, because just like San Diego, Chris, Anaheim has struggled with basketball franchises, from the Anaheim Amigos of the old American Basketball Association to a few minor league teams. Chris, what cities that are not WNBA affiliate, Chris, like Anaheim, San Diego, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Chris, what other non-cities, Chris, do you think, though, would be worthy of a WNBA franchise? Chris, I look at it this way, that if you don't try former WNBA cities, Chris, why don't you give former NBA cities a chance to have a team and see how well it does? Because, Chris, honestly, San Diego has not had a basketball team since the 70s. Anaheim, I think, has not had a team since about that same time, Chris. Do you think, though, man, that Laura Ritchie would even go to non-WNBA cities, like San Diego, like Anaheim or Las Vegas? Would she consider, Chris, other options more so than just current or former WNBA cities? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you probably go different cities to expand the league.
Now, Chris, it might be a stretch for San Diego because we play, or all of our teams, Chris, which would be the Soccers and the San Diego Soccers of the Major Arena Soccer League, and our World Team Tennis Team, Chris, play in a building that has not been refurbed since 1966, Chris. It is an extremely old arena here at the Valley View Casino Center, Chris. It's not the best of arenas, Chris. In Anaheim, Chris, I mean, you do have options. You have the Honda Center in Anaheim, which was on Albert Lee's list of possible destinations should the Sparks had left L.A. for a different arena. Chris, I even consider this as well, man, is the Sparks. I think that it's a good idea, Chris, for WNBA teams, Chris, to play their preseason games not in their hometown city, Chris. Play them, at colleges across your state. Chris, there was one year where the Sparks came to San Diego and played an exhibition game at Ben Cox, now Viejas Arena, Chris. Or even, Chris, the Sparks had a regular season game in 2009 at the Home Depot Center. Chris, where the LA Galaxy play their soccer games, that the Sparks played an outdoor game at the tennis stadium right next to the Galaxy Stadium. So, Chris, I think more so, man, you start planning out things like this, preseason games, Chris, or, Chris, even play more outdoor games. The Sparks played Seattle in a regular season outdoor game, Chris, and that thing drew about 12,000 people at StubHub Center, then Home Depot Center, now StubHub Center's tennis stadium. So, Chris, I think, though, man, it's a good idea to play preseason games, Chris, kind of like what the Lakers do, Chris. They play games in San Diego, at Staples, but then, Chris, they go to Ontario, to your city in Anaheim, to Vegas. Chris, I think to sort of get it out there, is play preseason games not in your specific hometown city. And, Chris, give an outdoor game a try. I mean, the Sparks played Seattle in an outdoor game in 2009, Chris. It worked out pretty well. Chris, what would you like to see, though, in regards to the league trying to get new cities involved in regards to seeing this, like preseason games in different cities, or, Chris, for the hell of it, outdoor games? What do you think?
You have to try and get, like, outdoor games, and, yeah.
Chris, the last outdoor game I recall seeing was when San Diego State played Syracuse here in San Diego, and they played the game on a USS on the USS Midway here in San Diego on a current active or a current retired United States naval carrier. And Chris, they had a full court out there and stuff, and the game drew about 14,000 people on the flight deck of a American naval ship, and it was a big draw on television. It was a big draw in person. So, Chris, I think that not only, Chris, you go to the former cities, you go to cities, Chris, like San Diego, like Anaheim, Vegas, Boise, Idaho, Chris, somewhere where Chris, they don't have a basketball team in any form, or at one time had basketball franchises. I think we'll get your guys' take though on Facebook and Twitter. Cities and more, or actually I should say that, should the WNBA consider playing more preseason games in non-team cities? And should they also consider playing more outdoor games at different venues? Because, Chris, honestly, I think when the Sparks played the Storm in that outdoor game at StubHub Center's tennis stadium, Chris, I mean, it drew a pretty good crowd. It was on television. And, Chris, I mean, it sort of reminded me of going back and watching the NHL outdoor games, Chris. How we saw the Ducks and Kings play this year at Dodger Stadium, a hockey game being played outdoors in California. Chris, it sort of gives these athletes, Chris, a chance to go back to their childhood, Chris, how they remember, being, 10 years old, or, our age, Chris, going to their local rec centers or their local parks to play pickup basketball outdoors. And it's a good way, Chris, to go back to that experience. So I think, Chris, I'm more so, man, I'm more so game for outdoor games, like the Sparks playing the Mercury at the StubHub Center Tennis Stadium, maybe a game somewhere else, it's small, small little venues, like small college campus arenas. Chris, there's so many ways you can go with expansion. Between, former cities of the WNBA, non-cities like us two in San Diego and Anaheim, and Chris, even outdoor game ideas, like we saw there, Chris. Chris, as we do wrap up for the night, though, man, your last thoughts, though, about possible WNBA expansion, and what do you think can be done, though, to keep expanding the league as far as it would go with either non-WNBA cities like us two or outdoor games, Chris? Basically, what's your ideas you have for the future of the WNBA as far as expansion goes?
To get extended and yeah.
So with that, folks, a quick program alert. Will be off on Friday night because I am covering high school football again, so we'll be off on Friday night from the network. We will be back either on Saturday or Sunday. We'll let you folks know on Twitter, but until then, folks, please have a safe night, drive home safely, thank you for coming, and good night. Now, this has been the LA Sparks 365 Network. We are Sparks, we are LA, we are the WNBA. We will see you folks sometime in the future, and we'll see you folks then. Till then, bye-bye.